Hello everyone, welcome. This is video number 2. Video number 1 was a semi-introduction. This will be more of a, maybe more of an introduction. Maybe I need to script this, right? No, I said this is unscripted. No, we're unscripting this. This is just going to be pure raw me. I said this on Twitter, and I may also say this on Facebook eventually and stuff, but yeah, I'm looking forward to this journey, sharing my journey with all of you. My journey of mental health, my journey with some of the struggles I've had over the years. I'm not going to delve into specifics of things that I've experienced per se. There are some things that are a little too personal for me to delve into, but I am going to get into the meat of mental health, mental illness, my journey with mental health and mental illness. I'm already vulnerable with all of you on social media, and I'm like I mentioned yesterday in the video that this is going to be more of the same. I'm going to, that this podcast is going to be much of the same. Not podcast, videocast. Podcast, maybe eventually videocast is going to be much of the same as on Twitter. Only I'm going to be, you're going to see me. You will see me talk. I'm not going to lie, there will be times when I'm going to be emotional on here as I talk, and I'm okay with that. And I plan to have guests. I want to. This video journey about me is I'm going to include others in this journey, and we're going to talk. Once I get this going, this will take me a couple of weeks probably or longer to kind of get my feet settled in and kind of get this. But eventually I want to really fine tune all of this to men. Athletes, musicians, just men as a whole. And here's why. No offense to you ladies, because let's be honest, a lot of you ladies, most of you ladies, you know how to feel a little bit more than some of us men, right? It's not so much you feel, but you're able to express and be vulnerable more so than some of us. So I want to talk to, ultimately the end goal. I'm dreaming big. Ultimately, the end goal is if I could get someone, say, for example, Kevin Love from the NBA or DeMar DeRozan, who have struggled with that. Again, I'm dreaming big. This will probably never happen. They're professional athletes. The likelihood of me ever being that lucky to have someone on like this is very, very limited. But those are examples of guys that they get it. They're vulnerable. They get it. They can admit to what mental illness does to them and what it is. We've seen them. They've been out there. They've been advocates for mental health. They have been advocates for fighting the stigma. They've been advocates for sharing their struggles. There are other athletes like them. There are other athletes who share who hold their or bear their feelings on their sleeves. Rudy Gobert is a great example of the same thing. And then there's athletes that don't. And I dare say that the stigma is very strong in the athletic world, and I'm sure it's probably not just men, but the other side as well as women and young men who play football or basketball or sports as a whole. But also, like I said, I want to fine tune this, tailor this to men, because I want this to be a safe place where men understand that, guess what? You can express, you can be vulnerable. And I'd like to encourage that. And if I have someone on that maybe is skeptical and maybe doesn't believe in it, then I want them to be able to come on and we talk about it. And if they, and otherwise I'll have people who are advocates who do bear their vulnerability, to be able to talk with them and share with them, and maybe they can touch somebody else's life who struggles, maybe doesn't want to come out and speak openly, because I do believe there's a lot of vulnerable men out there who are afraid to say something. They're afraid to say something because of the stigma, because of how it looks to everyone. Even I struggle with that. I'll be honest. Even I struggle. So as I get this off the ground, as I'll start with sharing my journey and talk, but as we get this off the ground, I want to get to the point where I can have people, where I can talk with them and share with them. Again, I don't have any grand equipment set up here. This is just me using a phone, me using my standard recording, software on the phone, the default, the video. And if I have guests, it might be on a Skype format if I can. Somebody who can talk to me either in video, or I can talk on the phone for that matter and record it. And there's different ways I can do that. But I want to get to where I can make that happen. where I can talk to people. So, and where they can share and kind of express themselves. I kind of hope too that I can maybe talk to a therapist or two who's willing to open up and talk about their experience with dealing with mental illness, mental health, mental awareness. But like I said, this is going to start out with my journey. Many of you know I struggle. Most of you know I struggle. Sorry, I get very emotional, and here I am apologizing, and I shouldn't apologize because the point of this is to be vulnerable. Life's hard. Life is hard. Yeah, I've been a little open about my experiences more recently on Twitter and on social media. I had a big, long Facebook post where I talked about my journey of mental illness since I was very young. This goes all the way back to as early as when I was 10. I can go back and read old journal entries from when I was a kid, and I can see signs of I was vulnerable then like I am now. I wore my emotions on my sleeve. I still do. But I could see times where I write in my journal and could just see how very hard I was on myself and how much I struggled. This started very young age, but it ventured into my teenage years, got bad, and then so on and so forth. And so, and many of you know with my more recent struggles with, obviously there's the divorce, but this goes beyond the divorce. But it's just, and I'm not going to talk so much about the divorce. That doesn't need, I don't need to air that kind of dirty laundry. It doesn't need to happen. I want to talk about how circumstances like that can affect one's mental health and how it affects mine. I've been suicidal ideations, so much so over the last 10 months, 11 months, and more so than ever in my life. You grow up and you're like, meh, wish I were dead. I wish I didn't have to, I wish I would disappear. All of this when you're a kid, like right when you're a teenager, you'll go through that stage. Some, like my son did that in a recent breakup with this, or not breakup, but with this rejection with this girl he had a thing for. He's just like, man, I do wish I wasn't alive or wish I wasn't around. And I've known kids who have done that. And I mean, we've all been there, right? But this is deeper. What I speak of. First time I had this was April of 2020. Yeah, it was just after the pandemic started. And it happened to be the early stages of some of the more heavy struggles that I've been going through since that point. And I was out for a walk at work, and I began to entertain thoughts of how I could take my life. And it scared the shit out of me. Like, I just went, wait, whoa. And I'd been seeing my therapist at that time, and I went to him and I said, tell me about this. Where is this coming from? And he says, it's ideations. He goes, we all go through those, at some point in time. He says, it's how you react to them. And he says, so far you reacted well. He goes, you recognize it and it scared you, and you recognize the unhealthy nature of that. And he's right. I did. And it kind of went by the wayside for a while. But it wasn't till October of last year that I started considering it again. I started with self-harm. First time I self-harm, I got on the floor and pounded my head, like in this very room, my office. It's in the basement. You know how a basement floor is like. It's all concrete covered with padding and carpet, right? If you're carpeted. In this case, that's what it is. And I was angry with myself. I was angry with my circumstances. I was really, really angry with myself for where I was. And so I just got on the floor and just clocked my head on the floor over and over again, my forehead. By the time I was done, I had a road rash kind of thing, this rash across the front of my forehead. And I gave myself a concussion. It was mild, but it was enough that it affected me. After I did that, then the suicidal ideations came in. Then I would drive up. My favorite place in Layton to hike is Adams Canyon, and they've done some work on the 89, and now they have a park and ride up there. And I went to the park and ride and would sit there and just want to die. I just wanted to think of ways to die. And it was one day I took half a day from work because I was just having the worst day. I had hit my head again, was really mad. So I decided to drive up there, and I sat there for a while, and I screamed and I yelled and I tantrumed in the car. Like anybody sitting by would have thought I looked like a crazy nut, just an insane individual. And I was. So I got up and I went out to the parking lot and just walked for a second. And just without warning, there's a viaduct nearby that goes over 89 that is Oak Hills Drive. And I had this complete pull or draw that just suddenly came over to me that says, you could end it all. Just go jump off. You're done. You don't have to deal with any of this anymore. Scared the shit out of me again, and I yelled at the top of my lungs out in the parking lot. Again, people are probably looking at me. I'm like, bullshit. I just was so mad. I ran back to the car. I got mad. I prayed for help. Ultimately, I ended up leaving. But that began the process of constant. Now it's in my mind. Now it's something I want to do. The self-harm continued. This time it went from hitting my head on the floor to now I'm using the palms of my hands and I'm hitting my head like this over and over and over again, right here in the soft spots on the side. And just over and over again, I'd rattle my brain, and it was bad. It was really bad. And I gave myself more concussions. This escalated into February and March. And there was a day, and I want to say it was February, I don't remember for sure, of this year, where I went up to my place again, and this time I paced the overpass. Paced it. To give you a little background, I had a friend that I've known since I was 12 years old. If you saw the news, you'll know what I'm talking about. He was 47, 46, 47, who decided that he couldn't take it anymore. He went to the Layton Parkway Bridge in Layton, the overpass, took his shoes off and his shirt off, and jumped. I've had a few friends and people I know who have taken their lives, some on Twitter, right? Colby, rest in peace. Another guy I knew, Moses Stone, and I can't forget the life of me. I can't remember his name. That's how sad it is. That's when you get to know people on Twitter. You know them by their handle, right? But he and I had talked even up to about a week before he took his own life. But this was a friend that I'd known since 12, and he jumped off of a bridge. And he did it at a time. There was an 18-year-old girl, a high school girl, driving with her mom in the front seat that watched the whole thing happen. That one hit. And so here I am now on the bridge doing the same thing. And it was, this time I was bawling. I was just losing it. And good for me, or best for me, that a passerby saw me and called the police. Because I went back to my car. I didn't do it. I didn't do anything. Obviously, I didn't do it. I'm here. I went back to my car and I sat in my car and I just bawled. And I saw somebody drive by me and she's like, "Hold on, are you okay? Are you okay?" I said, "I'm good." And she left within less than 5 minutes. The Layton City police were behind me and they got out of the car. They asked me to get out, asked me if I thought about harming myself. I said yes. They asked if I had weapons. I didn't. Ultimately, I let them take me, and I took a backseat ride without cuffs because I told them I would comply. I sat in the backseat of the cruiser, and they took me to the hospital, and I spent 5 hours at the Layton Hospital in the ED to work through with a social worker and be okay with things. But before I was allowed to go home. 5 hours. Oh, by the way, insurance covered, but I still had to pay out $500 for that visit later. But that day changed a lot of me. I still had the ideations. I still threatened. I threatened a lot. Oh, did I ever? And then the self-harm continued until one night in that same place, in that same parking lot, I was having the worst possible day. I had just had a fight with the ex. It was bad. And I sat in the parking lot and I just wailed on myself so bad that I gave myself the worst concussion I had yet. In fact, my whole head swelled. I kid you not, it swelled. I had a concussion. I had to sit in the car for a while. I was woozy. I couldn't see straight. I couldn't think straight. Sat there until I could regain myself. And I went home, and then I went for a walk, which seems to be the thing I do these days. In fact, I do it a ton now. But that night I went for a walk, and I didn't get more than about 50 yards maybe. And I just broke down. And a passerby, this time a really good neighbor, stopped and just, Alan, are you okay? And I said, no, I'm fine. And I passed off. They left. Not even a minute goes by, and the husband returns and says, get in the car. That night did it. I didn't self-harm again after that night because I was scared, but because somebody insisted that I get in the car. And he went and bought me a drink. And we didn't talk about anything I was going through. We talked about everything else, like my son and how he's doing. Talked about my hiking desires, my wanting to get out on mountain bike and things like that. But it was just a night where he could just talk with me. But from that night, I never self-harmed again. And I haven't. Well, okay, I didn't do that. There were a couple more times, a month or two later, where I tried to use the cord of a laptop and wrap it around my neck and pull and pull and pull until I couldn't breathe anymore. Obviously, that didn't do any good because, again, I'm here. But I haven't done that in 2 months. I have not self-harmed in 2 months. I can say that proudly, loudly, happily, excitedly, however you want me to put it. I have not done it in 2 months. In that 2 to 3 month period, my visits with my therapist became more frequent. Every 5 days, every 7 days, we would meet frequently. He's the one that suggested I buy a boxing bag rather than hit my head. He's the one that suggested that I get with a doctor. Well, before I could up my meds, he's the one that suggested I get a psychiatric evaluation, which I did. Found out I have severe depression and generalized anxiety. Kind of knew both of those. Not to the severity, I think, the depression, but I knew both of those. And really, it wasn't that obvious. Yeah, it was. But then I got on a medication that seemed to help, and it has helped since then. I'm not better completely, but I'm managing. I'm in a better place. I've been in a better place for a month now. I can honestly say that. I'm learning how to love me. I'm learning how to deal with things, balance life a little bit more. There's obviously the variables of a divorce, post-divorce, things relationship-wise I'm dealing with there that have not been easy on me and have been hard. But the fact that I've been able to focus on me and my health and my healing has helped me to manage that a little bit more. If you've considered suicide, if you've self-harmed, if you've considered self-harming, message me, text me. If you have my number, reach out to me. I will talk. I will listen. I don't need to talk. I'll listen. You want to get together for lunch? We'll go to lunch. We'll have to schedule it appropriately. Dinner, likely. You want to just get together and just talk? We'll do that. Because honestly, I'll tell you right now, me talking to somebody else about their struggles helps me. So reach out. Also, don't be afraid to get a therapist. Don't be afraid to seek professional help. It will do wonders. I don't know. That's just a short version of my recent journey. I'm going to get more into it as we talk, but this is me. This is my life unscripted. And I look forward to sharing more with you and hopefully talking to a few other additional people to talk about their struggles and their vulnerability and having them be open. This is what I want to do. I want to be an advocate, and I want to do it any way I know how. This isn't for everybody. If you look at this and think I'm nuts, yeah, you're probably right. I am nuts. But if you think I'm nuts for doing this, if you think I'm off base, if you don't like it, if you don't want to support it, great, don't. I have a feeling more all of you that are watching this, and even all of my friends that aren't watching this, will support me through this anyway. I have had an outpouring of love and people reaching out more than I ever have in my life. When I posted on Facebook what I did, I had over 200 likes and over 100 comments of people talking to me. It's my most interactive post to date since 2003. That tells you something. I've had friends reach out and ask me to go to lunch. Longtime friends. I've had friends message me and apologize for the way they've treated me over the years, which they didn't need to do that, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how you're treated. It matters what's going on up here. Sure, it doesn't help the outside pressures and sources, but it's up here. If you love yourself and if you care about yourself, and kind to yourself and have compassion for yourself and have empathy, the outside sources won't have near as much effect on you. I know this because I'm learning that right now. But I've had many people reach out, and I am forever grateful. Many of you who are watching this have been people that have done that. And trust me when I tell you, you've saved my life. Thank you. So I look forward to more of this. This is me. This is my health journey, my mental health journey. This is my life, unscripted.